What's up, people? This is the Believe in Saints podcast presented by FanDuel. I am Mario Jerez, Spanish play-by-play voice of the Saints, native New Orleanian. She is my co-host, Erin Summers, veteran reporter and analyst covering the Saints and the NFL. Big show for you here today, Erin. We have made it to game week. We'll talk some Saints versus Jaguars. We'll discuss what we're looking for the most throughout the preseason. We'll also give some practice observations, talking about practice as the Saints continue training camp, technically wrap up training camp this week. And we'll recap an excellent speech at the Hall of Fame as Drew Brees is immortalized into football immortality. Thought that was a great speech. I definitely have thoughts. I definitely got emotional. Looking forward to hearing Erin's as well. Erin Summers, good to see you. How are you?
I am doing great. It was a great weekend. Two practices, obviously the Hall of Fame induction. The speeches were amazing. I loved how the Saints also paid tribute to Drew Brees because all the coaches on Saturday were wearing those white t-shirts with the number 9 and Brees on the back, which was really cool. They had the 9 logo painted on the center of both of the practice fields. So in their own way, they also paid tribute to Brees and what he meant to the organization. And then the fact that they spent their entire team meeting Saturday night listening to the 25-minute speech and just hearing the impact that it had on some of the players, I think that that's really special as well. Drew Brees is continuing to give to this team and this city and pour into the organization, obviously having that connection with Tyler Shuck, but then even here in this really passionate, moving speech about what it means to be a teammate, what the city meant to him, I think that that's going to pay dividends for this team going forward if they really took what he said to heart.
Well said. I agree with that. Hopefully, it could be kind of like symbolic. You know, we all enjoyed that. We all enjoyed that era if we got to
Mhm.
experience Drew Brees and Sean Payton, but we want more good times, right? We want to
Yeah.
turn the page and we want to experience winning again. Maybe not winning a Super Bowl, maybe not NFL records, but getting back to that winning foundation that Drew Brees established. So we will recap that speech. We'll give our thoughts. I'll tell you why I got emotional, Erin, because I definitely did. But first, we had to cue the Allen Iverson talk about practice because there's plenty to discuss from over the weekend. Some of it good. Jordyn Tyson looking good. Bryce Lance looking good. I definitely want to talk about that. But not all good news, unfortunately. The Saints suffer another season-ending injury to another key player as Dillon Radunz has torn his ACL. Definitely alters reps for the rest of the offensive line. That will have a chain reaction. But it hurts, Erin, because this is somebody who was dependable, somebody that could show, somebody who had already showed that they could be part of that offensive line rotation, starting 10 games last season. And it's not ideal. Obviously, it compounds after the news of Bryan Bresee, but we've talked a lot about this offensive line. First 5, if they're healthy, big if, one of the best in the NFL. But the depth is definitely a concern. And the depth definitely took a hit with this news with Dillon Radunz.
We've seen over the past couple seasons how important depth is at the offensive line because of the injuries that the O-line has had. It started with Eric McCoy 2 years ago, and that just derailed the entire season. So Saturday, they moved Cesar Ruiz to center to take second team reps, and they moved Dillon Radunz to right guard because last year he was all on the left side. He took every rep. He played at left guard majority of the season. So you move him to the right side to get first team reps in case something happens. They are making those contingency plans now. Well, Ruiz was supposed to get reps at center Saturday and Sunday. Raidens goes down with an injury in one-on-ones early in practice. He ends up out for the season with a torn ACL. Ruiz moves back to right guard because you just can't mess with things right now. You want to continue to hope that the health is going to be there and that will be your starting offensive line. But then who is going to be that swing guard? Because Raidens showed that he was extremely reliable at that position, earned himself a new contract in the offseason with the Saints. William Sherman came in behind him. We'll see if he's going to be somebody that steps into that role. It's unfortunate that you've had 2 major injuries up front because Kellen Moore, from the day he started here as a head coach, talked about how you have to build from the inside out. And to take 2 injuries to your starting defensive tackle in Bryan Bresee and then your key swing guard backup in Dillon Radunz through the first 2 weeks of camp is tough. gives you time to figure out what the next options are going to be. I think defensive line looks to be a little bit ahead in that regard. They have more depth, more options. We've seen Christian Boyd. We've seen a lot of other players that have been able to move into that role. Nathan Shepard is somebody that's been there. So I think they're going to be okay in regards to the D line. The offensive line, though, it's just been dicey over the past few years. So any injury to that position makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, agreed. We don't always agree, but 100% here. It's way more detrimental to the offensive line. And with Cesar Ruiz, it's getting to the point where he just has to play better. There's no other option. He is who is in tow for the Saints. And I think he's capable of playing better than we've seen the last couple of seasons. Like, it's just been a consistency issue. It's not like he's not NFL caliber. It's just he has to be a little bit more consistent. And that's definitely the case now with this injury to Dillon Radunz. And it hurts extra, Aaron, because I feel like we went through this last year. Like, it was a similar conversation. Offensive line, pretty good, but the depth is lacking. And this time last year, I remember Nick Salivari getting hurt, a knee injury that ended his season during training camp, pretty much ended his season. He went on IR soon thereafter. And then Will Clapp suffered that season-ending injury, which ended up being a career-ending injury. He's a coach on the Saints now. And then Trevor Penning went down around this time last year. So definitely not ideal. You're counting a lot, I think, on your two bookend tackles, and Banks is looking really good in training camp, which is good. But him and Fuanga really got to step up, and that exterior of the offensive line, I think, needs to be strong to make up for some of this attrition on the interior now with these injuries.
Watching practice on Sunday, the offense started strong in the call-it period where offense was going against defense, basically the two coordinators, Kellen Moore calling the offensive plays and then the defense having to respond. The offense did very well in the first team period, but as the practice went on, the defense really dominated. They got to the quarterback, whether it was Tyler Shuck, Zach Wilson, even Spencer Rattler, 6 times in practice. I mean, they were blowing up the offensive line. There were a few plays where just Cesar Ruiz, Talia Seifuaga, they got blown up. Alvin Kamara ends up in the backfield trying to block as well. Both he and Fuaga on their back as Tyree Wilson gets to Tyler Shuck. And it's moments like that where you're wondering, is the D line so good or is the offensive line struggling? And that's why I cannot wait until we get to Thursday and the joint practice to see them go up against somebody else.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of get your observations. I know you were there all week, Aaron, and it's crazy that the trend continues. And I know the offense had a good day on Sunday. Like you said, they started well, but the theme of the defense kind of kicking the offense's butt continues. And the answer to your question is it's more the Saints offensive line being bad. I think that's my opinion, and that's the opinion of most people. I don't know if you've seen a kind of viral clip of Vernon Broughton going against Cesar Ruiz, and Cesar Ruiz gets knocked on his butt, like no other way to put it. Like, they got to be better. Have you seen that theme throughout training camp? And had there been any maybe individual defensive guys that have caught your attention? I mean, we've talked about Caden Ellis. We've talked about Vernon Broughton just looking big, like out there in his pads, like he could be a factor this year. Is there any individual player that caught your attention the last couple of days?
I think that Caden Ellis is somebody that stands out because of his speed, his ability to set the edge. He had a sack yesterday as well. It's going to be interesting to see how often we see the linebackers getting involved in that action because we didn't see a lot of sacks from the linebackers in years prior. But with the system, it's something that Staley does want to be able to do. So Ellis has definitely stood out. Pete Werner got injured in practice on Sunday. He went out, left practice early with a groin. So Danny Stutzman filled in, and he is somebody that has continued to creep in more and more with the snap count, more first team reps. And so I'm not sure if we're seeing potential for him to take over more of that linebacker role. We don't know the extent of the injury to Pete Werner. He did not finish practice. He was there on the sideline watching, so that might tell you that it wasn't anything too serious. But Danny Stutzman, I think, is going to take a huge leap forward this year. He might not be your most important cog, but I think he's going to be somebody that does have an impact. Special teams, he did so last year. Defensive line, Chase Young is just a beast. He really is. First of all, he is a physical specimen. They don't make people like that. And he looks to be even in better shape than he was years prior. He started the season last year injured, still hits 10 sacks. So, what can he do with the full season, second season in this system? And to your point about why the defense looks to be ahead, there's more continuity on that side of the ball. They didn't make a lot of changes in personnel. They're going into year two basically after building such momentum as the season went on, extremely far ahead of where they started camp last year. So I think it makes sense. Defenses usually do start further ahead of offenses in training camp in general, but it makes sense that the defense is holding it down right now on that side of the ball.
And in training camp, they're going to look good with the linebackers that they have. Like you said, Ellis standing out. I think Stallbird and Stutzman both have a lot of raw potential. Like both of those guys can hit. They're so good sideline to sideline. They just need a little bit more NFL experience to get a little bit better between the ears. Once that happens, I think they'll be really good players. But one thought that I had, Erin, that I kind of want to think out loud right now is, do you think we're maybe downplaying a little bit the departure of Demario Davis? Because if we are, I don't think we'll be able to tell until the game start. Because post snap, I don't think they'll miss him very much, right? Like athletically, I think these guys are capable, but it's pre snap, making sure the other 10 guys are lined up. Like, is the veteran presence of Justin Reed and Julian Blackmon enough there, or will they miss Demario Davis? As we actually start playing games, to your point, against other opponents, that's definitely something I'll be keeping an eye out for when watching the Saints defense.
Demario Davis was the quarterback of the defense. He called what he saw, what was coming, got people where they needed to be. I mentioned this last podcast that Danny Stutzman said that he was nervous to ever say anything because he didn't want to be wrong, because he knew Demario was going to be right. Like, no matter what comes out of Demario's mouth, it was going to be right. So he didn't want to ever say anything that countered that. But Kaden Ellis has spoken extremely high of the players, not even just the linebackers, but all of the players on the field around him, saying that they do understand their roles, where they're supposed to be. They're smart, intelligent players, that they understand the offense. So I'm not concerned, to be honest, that we're going to have any drop off in terms of intelligence, football IQ, knowing what's coming before it comes. Demario obviously has way more experience than anybody else did, just because of the years that he's played in the league. But Kaden Ellis has shown a good ability, and the other players around him as well. Terrell Burgess actually yesterday said something that was really interesting to me, because you do pinpoint the linebacker as the anchor of the defense because he is the main communicator out there. He said that this team is going to go how the nickel slot goes. That in the system under Staley has the most impact on how the rest of the team, defensive wise, falls in around the scheme, what they're trying to counter. That puts a lot on Yonas Sanker if that's going to be what he feels like. And we know how important that role is in Staley's defense. It's something that's always been talked about from the minute we started seeing him roll some of these teams out. But that was interesting to me that he pinpointed that position as the key position on the defense.
Interesting and a little scary, right? Because Yonas Sanker had a really good rookie season, but very unproven at that spot. And Alontae Taylor, while I think it was worth letting him go and not paying him all that money, he was very dependable there. And I think that's something, honestly, Erin, where the jury's still kind of out. It's like, I know it's Sanker right now. I know it's been Jaden Price and a few other guys repping there, but that is a position where I still think we could see some more faces. And one face that, honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing there is Lorenzo Styles. He's looked really good to me throughout training camp. And we know the Saints drafted him to be a contributor on special teams immediately, but he was basically the starting nickel for Ohio State last season, right? Really good school, really quality competition. And in these one-on-one drills going up against guys like Trey Palmer, he's been kind of locked down. Like, you really see the ball skills. And I think it's a situation where, his brother got a lot of the press, rightfully so, high draft pick, and his skill set kind of went by the wayside. So that's a player I look at as kind of like a low risk, high reward. And it's just training camp. I say all the time, I'm not a player evaluator per se, but he's looked really impressive to me. And I'm curious to see if he doesn't get some snaps at slot corner at some point throughout the season.
I think Jaden Price is another player to watch out for. Jaden Price has come on in a big way this season. He's playing with a lot of confidence. Burgess also praised him yesterday, saying that he's had the most picks and the most PBUs out of the whole defense so far through camp. He's just making plays. So that's another name and person to watch for.
Saints are playing in the Superdome this Saturday. We have finally made it to game week. And,
Mhm.
Aaron, I've been to the Super Bowl a lot as a media member, as a Spanish play-by-play voice of the Saints, but I went there first as a fan. And obviously, a lot of people there like to go to the concession stands. They like to eat food and they like to drink beer. And I remember one time I was barely old enough to drink. I was maybe like 21 years old. And I got a couple of beers, one for me, one for my stepdad, I think, but I was a little short on cash. I thought I had like $18 or whatever. I only had $16. And it was an awkward moment in the line, right? The cashier's like, I need $2 more. Everybody behind you is like, move this thing along. But this one really nice gentleman took $2 out of his pocket, gave it to me, and I bought my beer. And I was like, hey, man, I'll go get $2 more, pay you back. He's like, don't even worry about it. Maybe he was just trying to get me out the way. But in my head, that was a nice thing for him to do. In my head, he went the extra mile or went the extra step. And it may not seem like much, but when someone goes the extra step, it makes a positive impression. Like that guy made a positive impression on me. And if you're hiring, great candidates can also go the extra step and tell you why they're interested in your job on ZipRecruiter as a way to stand out for the others. Right now, you can try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. And ZipRecruiter has a new feature that shows you the most interested, most qualified candidates first, so you meet the right people faster. And their powerful matching technology finds candidates quickly that are qualified, not just any Joe Schmo. So try ZipRecruiter and meet great candidates who will go the extra step for your job. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day, same day. So try it for free today at ziprecruiter.com/audio. That's ziprecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, meet your match on ZipRecruiter. All right, Erin, we're going to bring back a segment today that we did a few times over the summer. Today, we are
Okay.
bringing back Yes or BS, preseason edition, training camp
All
edition,
right.
whatever you want to call it. And we've both been out of practice. We've both seen Barion Brown make a lot of plays. We've
Mhm.
seen fans on Twitter highlight those plays. And I've seen him called kind of the camp darling of this training camp, which I have thoughts about. But there's definitely a lot of hype for Barion Brown right now. So I'll pose the question, yes or BS? The hype in practice right now is warranted for Barion Brown, and Saints fans should be excited about him. Yes or BS?
I wish I could take the middle on this because I think that he's making the team for sure.
Yeah.
He's going to contribute special teams wise. But there's definitely been an emphasis to get him more involved on the offensive side, and he's proven that he can do that. He is quick, smart, he wins contested balls. Like we've seen really good stuff from him. While he was somebody that stood out through the first week and a half, he was extremely quiet the last 2 days. So the consistency needs to be there. And it's normal for a rookie to come in and have days where it just everything clicks and then days where the defense gets you. So you honestly don't ever want to see the offense win every single day or the defense win every single day. It's going to happen with the player as well because you want your team to be good on both sides of the ball. I think that he does have potential. I think he's going to be an exciting player. But I think the most consistent wide receiver we've seen so far has been Jordyn Tyson, which is huge. And I'm sure we'll get to him.
Yeah, we will later on when we talk more practice observations. But I think I'm buying the hype a little bit more, Erin. I really think Barion Brown can be a factor. And, temper the expectations. When I say a factor, maybe like between 300 and 400 receiving yards as a rookie would be really good. But maybe
Mhm.
some of those over the top, stretch the defense, big plays in the game. And he's doing this against the first team. I want to remind people a lot of these plays. It's not going against, the third or fourth guys in the depth chart. So I'm excited to watch Barion Brown this season. Like you said, I think he'll make the team, and I think he could be a good top-level guy, kind of like a Rashid Shaheed replacement for Kellen Moore. So we'll see if he lives up to that hype. For the next one here, Erin, I want to go to the defensive side of the ball, kind of
Mhm.
put you on the spot here because you were talking about Chase Young. And I've heard some people say that Chase Young is the best player on this team. And you could take that how you want, most talented, potentially the most productive. but he's been really good with the Saints. And more importantly, Aaron, he's been healthy. 2024, his first season here, he played all 17 games, but he was dealing with a nagging injury coming into the next season. But the Saints made the smart decision. They hold him out the first 5 games. He comes into the lineup and only plays 12 games, and he gets 10 sacks. So in my head, if we get that same version of Chase Young for 16, 17 games, we're talking about like a dozen sack guy, like an all-pro caliber guy. So I would argue that, yes, he is the best player on the Saints right now because he has the most potential in terms of his talent, and he's the most proven. He has skins on the wall, double-digit sack guy without even playing the full season. Now maybe he will play the full year. So all that being said, yes or BS, Chase Young is the best player on the New Orleans Saints right now.
On the defense, he is. And potentially, I guess you could argue offense in terms of production.
Olave is a candidate for sure.
Right. Yeah, for sure. What he's done since he's been here, he definitely has had a revival of his career. He was a rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year, his first year in the league, and then dealt with a lot of injuries. So his bounce back has been incredible. I know the way that he takes care of his body. He has tons of machines at his house. He has invested. I mean, he told me one time he spent $20,000 on one single machine to help with his recovery. That's at his house. So he is doing all of the right things. And I think that we could really see him, like to your point, he didn't play a full season last year and had 10 sacks. I think we could see him have an even better year with how the defense is going to be starting further ahead. Grando got to the QB a couple times yesterday. We're seeing that pass rush from multiple areas. I would say, yeah, he's the best player right now.
Okay. I think we're splitting hairs here because I'd maybe argue that Chris Olave is for the same reason, skins on the wall. We talk so much about his health. Technically, he's been healthier, but definitely a candidate. That's why I thought it was a fun question to pose. And I think a lot of people agree with you. And I think Chase Young, in a world where the Saints, meet expectations for a lot of these people hyping it up, get back to the playoffs, get back to contention, it'll be another big season for Chase Young being a driving force there. All right, last topic for yes or BS. There's been a lot of talk about the backup quarterback battle. Right now, it's not looking like too much of a battle. Aaron, Spencer Rattler looks really good. Not that Zach Wilson looks horrible out there, but Spencer Rattler is just making plays, dropping dimes. Had a really nice one to Barion Brown the other day. Had a 50-yarder to Lance as well. And there's been a lot of smart football people I've heard praise Spencer Rattler. I'll never forget a soundbite from last year. You were on the team. A lot of your job was collecting sound, so maybe you remember this. But when the Saints were playing the 49ers, Robert Saleh was giving so much praise to Spencer Rattler. And one quote that stuck out in my head was he said that Spencer Rattler, by the end of the season, would be a household name. That's how good that he thought he was playing. And I don't know if I would go that far, but this is somebody who started a lot of games, someone who I think has a lot of confidence for somebody who got benched pretty much by a guy who got drafted after him. And there's a lot of desperate teams in the NFL, Aaron. We saw Phillip Rivers get off his couch last year and go play for the Colts in his mid-40s. So it wouldn't be the craziest thing to see Spencer Rattler as a starter in the NFL, but I'll still pose the question to you. Yes or BS? Spencer Rattler is good enough to be a starting quarterback in the National Football League.
Yes, he is. Because injuries happen, to your point. We're already seeing a lot of them at the quarterback position in training camp. We're seeing people fall down the depth chart, Anthony Richardson being one of them. You mentioned the Colts and their issues at quarterback. Looks like the Falcons, the Panthers just picked up another quarterback. There's a lot of teams in our division that are looking for options, and Spencer Rattler is a viable option for a starting quarterback. The way that he has commanded the huddle, dominated, honestly, every day during training camp. I don't want to say that he is far above Tyler Shuck, but he has definitely made more big plays than Tyler Shuck has, starting with the 59-yard touchdown pass to Bryce Lance in the first team period yesterday, second play of that period, and it ends in a touchdown. Then later in the practice, they were doing situation work, end of half, down 3. Rattler was the only quarterback that led the team down to scoring position. Unfortunately, Charlie Smith misses the field goal, but he gave his team an opportunity. And I think that he has stood out in a really positive way throughout training camp, and things could get interesting if there are more injuries across the league and things happen where somebody gives him an offer. I mean, obviously, he's under contract and he is the second string, no doubt, quarterback. I don't think Zach Wilson has usurped him by any means. It's definite, but I will say that I don't think Tyler Shuck is going to lose his starting job. I think they're going to ride that one out.
Yeah, as they should. And I'm really excited for the preseason for that reason also, Aaron, because part of me really wants to stick up for Tyler Shuck. I think your observations are valid. Rattler objectively has looked better, but I don't think Tyler Shuck is trying to go out there and like make big plays, make the big throws. Like he's trying to be measured. He's trying to go through his progressions. And only when we get to the preseason actual games, or maybe even the joint practice against the Jaguars, I think we'll see the Tyler Shuck from last year. His ability to improvise, get out the pocket. You're just not going to see stuff like that as much in practice. So that should be the case. And I agree with you with Spence. You know, somebody who's experienced, if you're somebody who's desperate for a quarterback, you could definitely do worse there. But I am excited to see Tyler Shuck in a game setting throughout preseason. And I'm really excited to watch Jordyn Tyson because, to your point, he's been a lot of fun to watch out there, to finally watch. OTAs, we talked so much about his hamstring, the maintenance plan of him not playing, but he's playing and he's breaking ankles. He's making big plays. He seems to be forming a chemistry with Tyler Shuck, which I think is the most important thing. But he's been fun to watch at practice. We'll see how much run they actually give him in the preseason games because I feel like they'll be cautious with him. But I'm ready for him to play against other people. I'm ready to watch Jordyn Tyson in black and gold.
I think the thing I'm most excited about is the fact that, remember the day before training camp, it seemed like they were being very cautious in how they talked about Jordyn Tyson, and there was going to be a evaluation after each practice, and he was going to be ramped up to get back on the field in full. And that did not happen at all. Day one on the field, participated, and he has every day since. And that has probably been the highlight of camp for me because we didn't see that at all during OTAs, mini camp. That was a huge concern. They talked about the recurrence of his hamstring injury, and you're sitting here like, you got to be kidding me with the way they were talking about it. And then day one of camp, he's a full go and has stayed that way. So that, I think, is another huge highlight of camp.
And a lot of smart people, and even the sports books we talk about, like during our FanDuel segments, like they are really high on Jordyn Tyson immediately as a rookie. And in my recent life as a Saints fan, Aaron, maybe it's just recency bias, but I feel like he'll be good right off the jump, just like Michael Thomas was coming out of Ohio State, just like Chris Olave was. And this is a different regime, but it's the same general manager, right, with Mickey Loomis. And there was a lot of talk about the Saints, you know, maybe having to invest in defense, Josh Downs, if he was available, get somebody like that. But this is an absolute weapon and somebody who could be a weapon going forward for the Saints. So from his rookie season, I think that'll be a big indication of that. And you can see watching him at practice why the expectations are so high at the start of his NFL career.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's somebody that can be an impact immediately with this team. My one area of concern at the moment is the kicking game. And we got to talk about it because you go back to 2 years ago, there was 6 games that were decided by 3 or fewer points for the Saints. Go back to the last game of the season. Charlie Smith misses a field goal in the second quarter. You lose to the Atlanta Falcons 19-17. Field goals matter. Making kicks matter. Blake Grupe got traded in the middle of the season or released in the middle of the season because he wasn't making his field goals. He had a brilliant camp. He only missed one all of training camp. And then you get to the season and you can't rely on him. Right now, you don't have a kicker that's running away with this. Neither of them have been overly impressive. Smith, 22 of 29, misses from 39, 44, 45, 47, 50, 51, 56. You're going to have to hit some of those kicks at points in the game when they matter. I mean, those are, yes, some of them 51, 56, 50. Those are a range, but the earlier ones, you got to be able to hit those. Brown, 21 of 25. He's missed from 30, 39, 45, and 54. So I'm just going to put that out there. Something to continue to watch. But it's a very important position for a team.
Yeah, arguably the most important in some games. Like you said, that could be the difference between winning and losing. And with Brown, it's interesting because the short ones really concern me. I know he was elite when it came to like 50 yarders, 60 plus yarders, even in the
Mhm.
USFL or wherever he was playing. But those are inexcusable, especially with the red zone struggles that the Saints have had. Like if you're
Yeah.
inside the 30-yard line, inside the 25, you have to have a kicker that you can depend on. And you'll have a
Mhm.
little bit more leeway with the long ones, but those you got to hit. But I will say that it's good for the Saints kickers to be going through this right now at this very moment, Aaron. I know it looks concerning because the season is about to start, but kicking is just so mental, almost to the point where I'd rather these guys get all the misses out now. Maybe the few fans in training camp are making them nervous or whatever. But when we get to the actual games, that's when they had to be money. And kicking is just such a tough position. It's so
Mhm.
mental. Like you've been around a lot of teams, high school, college, pro. You know that a lot of times kickers are, I don't want to say looked down upon, but if you mess up, they're going to be even more mad at you because you're not hitting anybody, you're not tackling anybody. And, you know, that you got to come through in those few moments where the team needs you. And some coaches,
Yeah.
you know, have not been nice to their kickers. Urban Meyer got in trouble for kicking one, like literally kicking his kicker. But I'd rather Brown and Smith get all these out now. And when we get to the preseason, if they make a few, just get their confidence going, that'll make me feel a lot better before the season starts.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully, they're just working through things right now. It's got to be tough mentally. It's the only position on the field where all eyes are literally on you. You know, if it's a quarterback, it takes him, his offensive line, receiver. There's multiple people on the field that have to make the play for it to be successful. The kicker, I mean, maybe the long snapper potentially or the holder has some impact, but I mean, once that kick is gone, like it's on you. All eyes are on you. People are coming after you
Yeah.
if you miss it. So I
Yeah.
understand the mental toll that it can take.
And no disrespect to long snappers, Zach Wood is a beast. I saw him in Canton. He's been the Saints long snapper since 2017. He deserves little bit more credit, but physically a lot easier than kicking. You know, not just the mental side, but getting it over your offensive line, the pass rush, and all that. Not an envious position, you know, for those guys to be in. Definitely don't
Mhm.
envy Smith and Brown right now. But hopefully they get the yips out and they're ready for the regular season. Before we recap the excellent speech that Drew Brees gave in Canton, Aaron, I thought it was one of the best ever. I did want to discuss this injury to Cam Jordyn, apparently
Mhm.
dealing with a hamstring issue. Based on what we've heard, it could be significant. They're still gathering information about it, but this kind of hurts. You know, you do have a little bit more depth on the defensive line, like you were saying earlier. But we talked so much about Cam, him coming back, and hopefully it's not something serious. But you just hate to see him start the season not healthy, especially given his age and him coming back to the Saints after all, you know, all the dialogue there.
Yeah, I mean, Cam doesn't miss games. He missed one because of he literally broke his eye. He broke his orbital bone and they would not let him play. He wanted to, but they wouldn't let him. And then COVID. So the fact that he is dealing with an injury right now, is it father time catching up to somebody? I don't know. I would hope not because I think he can still be an impactful player for this team. Hopefully it's minor and they're just being cautious about it. Kellen Moore would not give details on the injury or severity. He did say that it happened in practice on Thursday.
Yep. So hopefully Cam Jordan's ready to go. If not, in the meantime, I think the Saints can hold it down at that position, especially with all the pass rushers that they brought in. But
Mhm.
hopefully Cam and his hamstring can get right before the Saints start the regular season. And like we said, Aaron, excellent speech for Drew Brees as
Yeah,
he
okay,
got
so tell
inducted.
me, why did you cry? What was it?
Well, it's just going back to all those memories, man. Like if you lived that, you know how powerful that is. Like if you didn't live that, if you're a younger Saints fan, I'm sure you can acknowledge, you know, Hurricane Katrina, the Saints coming
Mhm.
back. But if you were in that stadium that day, if you were a fan of the franchise that day, like there's so many numbers that could encapsulate Drew Brees' greatness, Aaron. But
Mhm.
I'll just go to one here. The Saints, as a franchise, their first 39 seasons had one playoff victory in 39 years. with Drew Brees in 15 seasons, 9 playoff victories, 9 times the total you had before, and that Super Bowl title, the only pro championship in the history of the city of New Orleans. So thinking back on all of that, thinking about how much fun it was as a fan, because as a fan, you can't control how good your team is, right? Most of the time it ends in heartbreak or elimination or something like that. The few times where your team actually breaks through and wins it, you remember. You remember hugging your family. You remember the sights and sounds of the city. And it made me emotional because that was just such an important time in the history of our city. And it was so much fun to relive. And I'll say this, Erin, maybe you disagree. It's okay if you do. I'm sure a lot of fans do. But Tyler Shuck could win 3 MVPs. He could win 3 Super Bowls, and it still would not mean as much as what Drew Brees did. That's why it makes me emotional.
It was a very trying time for the city. And for him to come in and deliver hope and something to get behind and bring people together the way that he did, he really poured into the city as well. It wasn't even what he did on the field, I think, is what's going to last longer than potentially his legacy on the field. Eventually, we're going to see a statue of him at the Superdome. I was talking to Jonathan Vilma, who was there, and he said it absolutely has to happen. There will be a statue of Brees out there. It's just a matter of what is it going to look like. I saw somebody on Twitter put up a picture, the iconic Super Bowl picture of him and his son Braylon, and they're like, I don't know, just throwing this out there. This could be an option for, I think it should just be Brees, but it'll be interesting to see when that day does come.
Yeah, I saw the AI renderings and I thought some of them looked pretty good. Like I think the baby has to be a part of it. Like that's kind
Yeah,
of the
you
lasting
do?
image. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
lasting image of the Saints winning the Super Bowl. Like by then I feel like all the adrenaline was coming down watching that game. The Saints had won, they kneeled it out, but when you saw Drew hold that baby up and the confetti like fall in the background, that was just a transcendent moment. And that
Yeah.
was awesome. And for what it's worth, Aaron, it was also awesome seeing the Who Dat Nation just completely
Oh my
take
God,
over
took over.
Canton, Ohio. Like you see passionate fans of teams, like, follow their favorite players, watch them get inducted. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like that. Like Chris Berman, too, props to him, kind of
Mhm.
playing into it, like saying there's a lot of Who Dat fans here and excellent camera work because the crew caught all like the well-known Saints fans, the whistle
Mhm.
guy, the
Mhm.
clown. I believe I
The
saw the
sign
Pope. Like,
guy. Yeah.
yeah, like it was just so awesome, man. And
Mhm.
like I said, hopefully we get some winning here with the current team. Like I think this city is start to, get back into contention. But it was really, really nice to reminisce and, all the feels with all the fans there and Drew going into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. It was an incredible speech. You knew it was going to be, but he beyond delivered. And props to him for memorizing that whole thing. I don't know how he did it or how many tries and rehearsals, but you could tell he felt it with everything that he had.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. He's a legend. Like everybody
Mhm.
remembers, the records and stuff. I only got to call his games when he was a little bit older, but even then, man, some of the stuff that he did, like 2020 season, gets injured against San Francisco, basically shatters his ribs. When he got back, he basically just had to rehab, didn't have surgery. And before leaving the game, he drove the Saints down the field. I think it was like 80 plus yards on a touchdown drive with
Mhm.
broken ribs in his 40s. Like at the
Mhm.
time calling the game, I made a comment on the broadcast. Like that is some legendary stuff from Drew Brees. And a few thoughts before we wrap here, Aaron, about the Hall of Fame ceremony. I'm still grateful to Sean Payton. Like I know a lot of people
Yeah.
will, hate on him, and there's history. There everything that happened with the Miami Dolphins and him getting caught there. Tom Brady potentially coming. Like I'm not saying you can't be mad at Sean Payton. I'm not going to tell you how to feel, but all that he did for the city, similar to Drew Brees, it was
Mhm.
nice and I think appropriate to see him up there with Drew. And another thing, I've been very critical on this microphone the last few years of Mickey Loomis, sometimes rightfully so, but it was nice for him to get his flowers as well because he was definitely a part of that era also. And lastly, it was also nice to see Michael Thomas out there.
Yeah.
He has to kind of reap what he sowed. He did some kind of messed up stuff towards the end of his tenure, but he's still a legend. And for what it's
Mhm.
worth, I think he still deserves to be remembered a little bit more fondly by Saints fans, by the Who Dat Nation, despite the way that things ended. So still always grateful to Sean Payton. And like I said, nice to see Michael Thomas out there because he deserves
Yeah.
to be out
It was funny. I saw a lot of people ribbing Saints on social media because they're, oh my gosh, you're acknowledging Michael Thomas again. You're putting pictures up on social media on your account of Michael Thomas. And yeah, it got a little dicey there at the end, but he is a Saints legend. And he has just as much of an impact on that era as anyone else that we saw out there, like Marcus Colston and Jimmy Graham and Alvin Kamara. I saw a picture of them together and I was like, gosh, man, you remember that receiving core, the running backs that they had? Like the people that were on those teams, absolute studs. So yeah, it brought back a lot of memories. It was good to see all the guys together. And I think one of my favorite things was seeing Chase Daniel posted the second line of Drew Brees at his after party. I saw some video from Luke McCown too. And just the joy that Drew had, the laughs, the smiles. I'm just so happy that he had that moment. It was beyond deserving of them even holding him to be the highlight of the entire Hall of Fame induction ceremony, to be the final one to speak. I mean, I think that they really gave him what he was owed in that as well.
Well said. Before we sign off, want to give some love to our friends at Katie's. Go see him at Katie's Restaurant, 3701 Iberville Street. It is game week. You could watch the Saints this weekend, this Saturday at Katie's. Great experience for viewing games, whether you're inside, lots of space, lots of television. Also have a beautiful patio area on the outside. Football season, Katie's season, one of the best restaurants in New Orleans, one of the most New Orleans restaurants in New Orleans with all the local flavor, whether you want some fresh seafood, some po' boys, very underrated pizza over there at Katie's. So go out and see our friend Scott Craig and all of our friends at Katie's. Got to get back out to Katie's soon, Erin. I know we went and ate before training camp started, but I'm definitely hungry for some Katie's.
Yeah, no, 3:00 game on Saturday. Perfect brunch stop at Katie's before.
Yes. Before we sign off, Erin Summers, any final thoughts as we continue game week for the Saints and our first preseason game coming up on Saturday?
This is the first game week for them. You know, they have practice Tuesday, Wednesday, light practice on Wednesday, then pads come on, that joint practice on Thursday, walk through Friday, and Saturday game day. I can't wait to see who's actually going to take the field on Saturday, but that practice on Thursday, I will be sat.
Can't wait. And Spanish audio highlights, they're coming. We had a game, they're coming. They're going to be part of the show, so look forward to that. Thank you, Erin. Excellent work as always. Talk to you in a couple of days. And thank you for listening. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. And hey, appreciate all the interaction. I like that we have not only a sizable audience, but an audience that likes to interact with us. Sometimes they agree. Sometimes you're saying we love your takes. Okay. Sometimes you don't. And we welcome the opposing viewpoints. So thank all of y'all, not just for watching, but for interacting as well. A couple more practices this week. Me and Erin will give our thoughts on those. We'll preview Saints versus Jaguars inside the Caesars Superdome on Saturday. And we will talk to y'all real soon. Thanks again for listening. Thanks again for watching. Have a great week. Who dat?